Today we'll be going over how to display lists of data in JavaFX, as well as how to manage multiple windows. Assignment 2 has just under 2 weeks left until it's due, so today's goal is to complete the basic window layout and also the simpler windows. Before next week, we want you to complete the windows that have lists, and before the final due date, we want you to complete the windows that have tables and also enabling disabling buttons in windows with input. Check the assignment guide on Plate if you're unsure what to do, and questions can still be asked on the forums. Last week we had a stadium with a single seatgroup. This week we'll extend that and have a list of seatgroups, and we'll be able to select one, hit open, and it will pop up a new window where we can sell seats in that seatgroup. I'll start with a slightly modified version of last week's demo. All the code that was in stadium.fxml has been moved to group.fxml. All the code that was in the controller for the stadium has been moved to the group controller. The stadium class now not only has one group, but a list of groups. So we add those groups to the list. The group class has not changed. I'm going to firstly categorize all these files using something called packages. So packages in Java allow you to isolate and also group code together. So I'm going to create 3 packages. I'm going to create a package for my model. I'm going to create another package for my view. And a final package for my controllers. I will then move my files into those packages. And I'll hit refactor here. Okay. Before we get started on the stadium, let's revisit the controller from last week. We created a field called group in the controller and used that as the model. Creating the model in the controller works well for a single window, but it does not work well for multiple windows. That's why this week we'll be using a better method, the view loader. So this class is provided for you, and what it does is it allows you to associate a model with a view and a controller. It's not necessary to understand every line of code here. What's more important is how to use it. So let's get on to it. In my application class, I'll create a new stadium. So that's our model. Then I will use the view loader to show that stadium. ViewLoader.showStage. So I will import the stadium. So the first parameter to show stage is the model. So we're going to show something with a stadium. That's our model. Next is the fxml. So that's inside, that's stadium.fxml. Now because it is inside a view, the view package, we need to update this URL. We need to make it /view/stadium.fxml. Next is the title. I'll just put stadium. And then lastly is the stage we want to display it on. So I'll display it on the stage that we're given. So that's part 1. Next we need to modify the fxml to work with the view loader. We need to add a controller to the stadium. So we're adding it to the stadium controller. Now like the view and the fxml, because the controller is inside this package called controller, we need to write in controller.stadiumController. So you give it the specific class name. In our stadium controller, we now need to make this extend a controller for a stadium. So this controller class here, we give you this as well. And it's used by the view loader. What it do is it adds 2 new fields to your controller. The model to display and also the stage that the view is being shown on. So in my stadium controller now, to get the stadium, I would return the model. Okay? And this model is the thing that is provided by the view loader, so that's the model there. Okay. Let's get some stuff displaying on this page. We need to have a text, a list view, and then a button to open. So I'll create a text called Stadium, a list view here, and I'm going to set the width to this to be 200 and the height to be 150, and then I'm going to add a button that says open. So if you've done all of this correctly, you should be able to run it now. If you get an error like wrong class name, then possibly you've done this controller for Stadium wrong. Okay, well the list view right now, it's not displaying anything. So let's add some items to the list view. So list view has a property called items, and we use the jar fxml binding expression to set it to something. So we want to, from the controller, we want to get the Stadium. And then from the Stadium, we want to get the groups. It would be nice that if I ran this now, it'll work. But unfortunately, fxml needs an observable list. So it cannot work with a linked list. So I'm going to update all these to observable lists. And observable lists have the property that they are observable. So when new things are added to them, the list view will automatically update. To create a new observable list, we need to use something called fxCollections. And this class provides lots of observable types. The one we're interested in is observable array list. Observable array list is actually just also a list, so we can still use the standard add methods. I'll then update my get groups here to return observable list as well. And there we have it. We have the list display. Let's get the open button working. So I will add an onAction event to my button. Open group, and let's create a method in the controller for that. And here what I want to do is I want to get the currently selected thing from the list view and open it. So let's get the list view inside the controller. So I'm going to give it an ID of groups LV. List view groups LV. And I'll add fxml to import it. I will make a getter for the current group. So lists views have this thing called a selection model. We use getSelectionModel to get the selection model. From that, we can get the selected item. We want to return this. Now, list views in JavaFX can contain any type of item. So we only want groups to be in this list view. So I'm going to change this type to be list view for groups. You might be wondering why we have to do getSelectedModel. Like, why can't we just do groupslv.getSelectedItem? And the reason is there are lots of things in JavaFX that allow you to select items, right? The list view, the table view, and lots of other things. There's drop-down views. They are bound to a list of items, and then you select one or more. So they've made a common interface for that. Okay, so we want to get the current group. And then from that we want to open it. So I'll use the view loader again here. ViewLoader.showStage. And the model here will be the group. The fxml is /view/group.fxml. The title, well, each group has a name, so I'll use that plus cgroup. And I want to show this not on the current stage, If you show something on the current stage, that replaces the window with a new window. We want to show it on a new stage. Now, the showStage method throws an exception, so it could throw an error if something goes wrong here. In Java, any method that throws an error must either handle that error or declare it throws an error. So for now, I'm just going to say the OpenGroup method can throw an error. We'll look at errors more next week. So if I run this now, it won't actually work yet because we haven't modified the group fxml and also the group controller to work with the view loader. So let's look at the fxml first. Our controller we need to put into the controller package, so controller.groupController, and our group controller must extend a controller for a group. Group is the model. Because we're getting the model from this controller class, we don't need to create the model anymore. And our getGroup method will not return group, but it will return the model. And just like that, the view loader is giving the different models to every window, and they're binding to the model's data. So this all works pretty seamlessly. If I sell seats in one window, it doesn't update in the others. But the coolest thing about JavaFX is that we're using the same model every time we open, say, the front seat group. These are all bound to the same front seat group model. So if I sell a seat on one window, it updates in every window, right? Because they're all backed by the same data source. So that is very cool. Okay. Let's add some flair to this stadium. I'm going to make this text a bit bigger, maybe also change the color, and also change the color and background color of the button as well. In JavaFX, how we style things is using cascading style sheets, or CSS for short. If anyone has done HTML, it's the same code. So I'm going to add a new cascading style sheet to my Vue package. I'm going to call it styles. And here we write CSS. How CSS works is we have something called a selector, then we have a curly bracket, and then we have property names to values. And we can have multiple values within a selector. So let's say, for example, we want to modify, let's say, the stadium. And we want to make this text bigger. I'm going to give this an ID of a header. To select this text in our CSS file, we write hash and then the ID. So to select an ID, we write hash and then the name. To change the color of the text, we can use the property -fx-fill. So I'm going to make it tomato, my favorite color. Now, running this now won't do anything because we need to actually link the fxml and the CSS together. And the way we do that is just in the root of your fxml, write style sheets equals add styles.css. And there we have it. It's now tomato. Let's make this a bit bigger. I'm going to make the font size 30 pixels. Cool. We can even go a bit higher than that, 50 pixels. Awesome. Let's change this button. So the way I'm going to select the button, I'm going to use a different type of selector. I'm going to select every button. So I'm just going to use the word button, because this is a button, so that means we're selecting a button. And I'm going to change the background color of the button. -fx background color, I'm going to make it blue. That looks pretty awful, but it's changed the color. What's cool about this selector of button is that if we take this style sheet and we now apply it also to group.fxml, all of our buttons will be styled in the same fashion. Alright, let's do one more thing. There's another way of selecting elements, and that is by not giving them an ID, but a style class. So I'm going to give this a style class of, again, header text, let's say. And to select style classes, we use a dot, and then we have the name, header text. So if I run this now, it should still have Stadium being tomato. Let's change this color of the button. Now it would be nice if we just use the same method here, fxfill, and then we wrote something like tomato. But that won't work because what's actually happening here is when you do fill only works on texts. So we set the fill of the text to tomato. But on buttons, if we set the fill, it doesn't know which thing to apply it on. Do we want to set the background color or the text color? It doesn't know. So fxfill doesn't work. So we actually need fx text fill. And that sets it to tomato. That looks much more acceptable than what we had before.